What's up, you guys? Welcome to the TechCity podcast. Bella Rose Okoji from TechCity back here. It is so good to be back. If you are listening via audio, whether it's on Anchor or iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, or anywhere else for that matter, hi. But if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I've got a guest with me on the podcast today, and I'm really excited about today's edition of the podcast, or today's episode of the podcast, because it is stuff that I have been particularly curious about, that I want to talk about. And it's stuff that I see people also constantly asking questions on. It's like, and there are really no answers, of which, until you get people who have the answers or people who work in that space, you just stay curious and you keep asking questions, and it's a never-ending circle or cycle. And so today on the podcast, I've got with me the very Rotimi keys. The crowd is supposed to go wild at this point. So Rotimi keys, real name Rotimi Akifenwa. I need to ask though, are you related to Benga Akifenwa?
Benga Akifenwa.
Yes.
Benga Akifenwa. That's
the singer.
That's the only elder brother I
have. Are you serious?
Uh-huh.
I've known you for a while and I had no idea.
It happens. Don't
worry.
My
You're
days.
Not
the first person to say that.
That's exciting. Okay, interesting. So we'll get to that in a bit. Okay. But Rotimi Keys is actually one of Nigeria's finest and most gifted music producers today. He's a songwriter. Not only is he a music producer, he's a songwriter, he's an arranger, a multi-instrumentalist, a sound engineer, a sound designer, a sound consultant, a husband, a father. What else? An entrepreneur.
Yeah.
A businessman.
Yeah.
A musician as well, a recording artist as well, because I know a few of your songs that I have listened to. And it's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So if you could maybe just introduce yourself simply, what is your most important skill to you?
Most important skill.
Yeah.
Music.
Yeah, musician.
Music, everything. No, seriously though, I wouldn't say one is more important than another. I think it's just what you're doing per time.
Right.
You can't say production is more important than sound engineering. Because of the training I kind of, had growing up, those things sort of culminated into one, lane for me. So it was much later that I was finding out that, people were kind of specializing in different things.
Yeah.
I was specializing in everything.
Everything. And that brings me to my next question, right? So typically when you hear people with stuff like keys or something sax in their names, you know that, this one, they were playing keyboard when they were, young.
My sister.
They were playing keyboard, they were playing sax, or they were playing the guitar when they were young. So obviously you started out by playing the keyboard. Didn't you?
That was actually not my first instrument.
Really? What was your first? Yeah, you are a multi-instrumentalist anyway. So what was your first?
My first instrument was actually the drums.
Really?
I started playing the drums at about 9.
Wow.
I started playing keyboards at about 11. I think I started playing guitar same year. I think I started playing bass a year after.
Wow.
I tried the trumpet, but my lips did not agree for the strength of the. So I played that for a few months and I dropped it. I'm like, It's not me that will come and wound myself on this. But really, what else? I think that the keys stuck because a lot of people just started calling me Keys.
Right.
Like, in fact, they took out my name. They were just calling me Keys Alpha, and that had gone round, right? So, and then when I opened my first email, back in the day when you couldn't open email yourself.
You tell yourself you open it.
Exactly. So the guy who helped me open my first email is my elder brother's friend, So he just wrote me Keys.
Wow.
So that kind of just stuck, and everybody seemed to like it.
Is the email still active?
Yeah, I think. Yes.
Yahoo, Abby. Is it Yahoo?
No. So it was the first one, I think it was Rotimi Keys at yahoo.co.uk or something.
Right.
But then I was like, dude, use my name now. So it now Rotimi Akinfenwa at yahoo.com.
Right.
So that was the first official mail I had. But the Rotimi Keys just kind of caught fire, in fact.
So did you go from being a multi-instrumentalist to being a producer? Because I know that there are people who are instrumentalists and they stay as instrumentalists. Was it something you could have done, or did becoming a sound engineer or a producer, was it just attractive to you, or did you just happen to be a means to an end?
So I think that playing musical instruments was actually secondary for me. Because, growing up, I used to sit down and wonder. I'm sure I probably was, I don't know, 5, 6. I used to sit down in front of my dad's turntable or those two-sided cassettes.
Cassettes, oh my days,
Yeah. And my father had this massive 24-inch speakers, man, stereo in the house. So I used to sit down and I used to ask myself, how do they put this music together? Because it's something playing out of a box. I'm like, how did they feed everybody in there? How did they feed all the music in there? You know, so as I was enjoying it, I was still bothering myself with, I didn't know what a studio was. But I just found myself asking those questions. So obviously when I started hearing about the fact that, oh, there's something called the studio, I see, you don't mean it, you know. I mean, so of course I started playing music along the way. My parents couldn't get me out of music, you know, and all that. But then immediately I found out that there was something called studio where I could by myself put stuff together. I'm like, it don't happen.
And so all of the knowledge you had gained from playing one instrument to the other just all crystallized.
Exactly.
Brilliant. So what then do you say to, you know, I guess this generation and perhaps even the millennials, from Gen Z to the millennials, and particularly those two generations, where they say stuff like, to be a great producer, you don't necessarily have to know how to play an instrument?
That's true, actually. You don't have to. But see, the greatest tool, maybe this will be the answer to your first question. The greatest tool of a music producer is your mind. And how you get everybody. Really, a producer is at the helm of affairs, in quote, to the music or a song or something. So it's good. It gives you an edge when you play, because you need to be able to express also on your inside.
Right.
To the musicians you're working with, or the singer, or the writer you're working with, or anything, you need to be able to. Sometimes it's easier when you speak the language yourself. You get on an instrument and you play it. Or you lay that track yourself. You know, sometimes it's better.
So being able to also maybe being able to identify instruments is an added advantage for you.
Exactly. So you have artists who are producers too. They don't play an instrument, but they get a keyboardist to play them. They say, no, don't play that. Let me hear something else. And then when they get to that's it. Stay there. Now begin to add something else. So they don't really play, but it takes them longer to get there. But if you play, you speak that language, it's so easy. And that way, you probably get more done in less time.
True, I get that.
It's the language, you know how to speak it, you know how to express it. If the musician is not expressing it the way you want, you collect it and play your thing yourself now.
So you don't think that not knowing how to play an instrument waters down the quality of a production?
No,
I
have a few producer friends who don't play nothing.
Speaking still on that, in that line of thought, there's also conversations around musicians who don't know how to write their music, and how if you don't know how to write your songs and how to put lyrics together, you are not perhaps one of the greatest ever.
I don't agree with that.
Why not?
There's something called songwriter. It's a part of the music spectrum. The same way you have musicians. It's like saying if you're there's also this thing that if you're a producer, then you must play all the instruments on your record by yourself. You know, especially in the digital age where, you know, you can play keyboard sounds, you can play drum sounds, no, it doesn't work that way. There are people who are called to be, in fact, there are songwriters who are trying to break into the business as musicians.
Yeah.
Where they have no business being that. They should literally just write songs and shop it to artists. Yes, musicians can be songwriters, but come on, the greatest people didn't write all their songs. The greatest song, some of the greatest songs you've heard, the musicians did not sit down to write them. They literally just went to the studio, they played 200 songs for them, and they, no, I like that one, give me that one.
But looking at perhaps the Nigerian example, and maybe this is the reason why songwriting is such a topic that we have in hushed tones and all of those things. Musicians are not the most generous with credit to songwriters. So maybe that is a problem. And how can we tackle that such that the songwriter can be like, see, I'm just a songwriter. I don't want to be on the big screen and stuff like that. How can we tackle that?
Honestly, this might sound controversial, and I know that, you know, a lot of people are probably going to say, What's he saying, Seth? I First of all, I think we need an industry. I don't think we have an industry yet. An industry is made up of different parts that all work together in sync. There are structures. There are lanes for people to tow. You can literally say, if you tow this line for this long and affiliate with this and this and this, after so number of years, you will have reached this. We don't have that yet. There's no set standard of doing things.
Everyone is just winging it.
Exactly. We just have small camps, different camps, and that camp blows, and everybody thinks, that camp not blow, and then another camp blows there, and some other people think so because of that. He comes in, pumps some money into being the record label board, and after 2 years he folds up. It's not standardized yet. So until things like that are standardized, where there is, for example, maybe just a body of songwriters, like if you register, you know that you're registering into a pool where artists can come and listen to songs. Once I like this, there's a standard. When there are structures, it's easier to sort of gauge performance. Sort of, So, for example, you're a songwriter. Is there a body, BMI, ASCAP type where you can join? And you know that, once you register, they take your songs and fly with it. It's either they shop it to musicians by themselves. Once a musician likes it, there is already a set sort of structure. What is there's paper to be signed straight up.
Yeah.
There's no need for you to be chasing anybody. Once you know that structures like that, it's easier for people to create a career out of things like that.
And then they make money for like the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
You're benefiting from your IP.
Exactly. It's your intellectual property. You shouldn't be hearing your song and you're angry because you feel cheated out of it.
Yeah, and that's why we have issues of people calling out somebody saying, no, I wrote the song for them, they didn't take it, then they now did something similar, they removed this lyric or this line. But why is it difficult to have like a body, for instance? Why is that so difficult for us to do?
I don't know. I guess for such to happen, there have to be people who think beyond themselves to make it happen. A group of people who think beyond, their own names. This kind of system has to be bigger than any name. So that once one person leaves or one person begins to try to corrode the system is bigger than the person. It's the same everywhere in any organization. If you have one person who is bigger than the system, he can, literally destroy the system. But when you have things like that, you have a body, and it is easy to hand over to the next generation, and it's sort of a system, a set system that is faceless. You can't hold that this person is the pillar of this thing. Once you begin to have things like that, then it's easy for you to be able to hold people responsible. One person cannot look at you and say, I'm bigger than you. If you didn't make beat for me, then you wouldn't have blown. So I won't give you credit, things like that. I don't. Honestly, I feel that once we begin to have structures, producers, songwriters, even artists, different types of artists, different types of musicians.
Yeah, we're coming there in a bit. But quickly speaking on intellectual property, I'll just take you back a bit to that, comments on intellectual property and owning it. Would you say that the culture of covers, has it affected people's intellectual property to the point where perhaps someone does a song, it's an okay song, somebody else does a cover now blows more than the original. Then that person maybe starts getting all the fame. That person maybe starts getting invited to maybe sing that cover at events and stuff like that. Basically, the person who did the cover is now more popular than the person who did the original.
But who's getting the money? The artist.
But so that's debatable. And I'll break it down. I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I was thinking about this, when I was preparing for this chat. And because again, I see that you are very involved in the gospel music industry. In a sense, you do a lot of stuff for the greatest gospel musicians in Nigeria and outside. And like kudos,
that's good. Thank you.
So one thing I have seen is, so if somebody sings a song. Perfect example. I'll just go for it. Sinachi's Waymaker, right? That song was the anthem of the world during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Literally everyone heard that song last year. And, thankfully she was able to get like awards and all of those things. She won a Dove GMA for Song of the Year for Waymaker. But it did not stop, some gospel greats like, your Michael Smith, I think, what's this woman's name now? No, Sissy did her own version of Blessings, So but you see that people are doing their own versions of these songs, and they are putting their own versions of these songs on platforms that pay you for whether it's views and all of those things. So how does that affect the original owner of the song, for instance? And how does it take away from that person being seen as, the actual owner and getting every dime that comes from, that
So
music
I
and
think
how
it
it's
depends.
streamed and all of that?
It depends on how the artist himself or herself set up his back end
Really?
to start with. Because I feel like when it comes to IP and all that, there are so many loopholes if you're not careful that might need to be, blocked. So sometimes you can't do it by yourself. You
Right.
need to get professionals involved. The type of mechanical royalties you're supposed to get, publishing royalties and all that. I mean, this example that you said, when Michael Smith, if I remember, first of all, it's not even a new song.
It's not. It's like 2017
I don't know when she released it, but I know
or
that
so. It's an
I
old
know-
song.
Exactly. But then when he did it, they kind of added their own part to it. I think
Yes.
there was a part
Even
that
when
she
I
didn't
don't see you,
write.
you're working. You never stop. Yes.
Exactly. So for that version, I will probably expect that they will split songwriting credits on that version. But then also, it is now known all over the world who wrote
2017.
Waymaker, Sinach.
Sinach.
They won't say Sinach and Michael Smith. No, Michael Smith just did a cover and put his own spin on it. Right? Who gets the award when the award comes out? They did not
goes to
split
her.
it. Exactly. So if she has set up, that tells you that she probably set up her back end very well.
Okay.
So, and that also speaks to, I want to believe that song was in a pool somewhere for these guys to have heard it. She probably had I don't know the story, so she probably had some sort of international affiliation or something, or maybe she's a member of BMI or something, and it's easier for people like that to start hearing those kind of songs, probably. And you never know. I mean,
Because it's in spaces where they also exist and where they have affiliations and all of
exactly.
those things.
But I mean, also at the same time, you never know. You don't take out the space of grace.
I was coming
Things
there
like
because
that.
you've given the technological and the logical answer.
It might just have heard it somewhere and
yeah.
was like, who is this?
But there's
I
also a
want this song.
conversation around, and I think a few gospel artists have also talked about and how they say stuff like, why are gospel artists singing each other's songs at events? Somebody also talked about how you won't see Davido singing Whiskey's song at a program. Why will you now come and be singing somebody's song at a crusade? And maybe that person is also on the guest list. You have sung their song. The person will now come. So you come, for instance, now they've sung all his entire album. You will now have to come and. So I mean, what do you think about that? Is that a problem? And is it okay?
So here's what I think. I think that it's not a problem.
But.
And I will. Yeah, there's a but. But let me explain. So if you release a song as a gospel artist, the rules are sort of different for the gospel industry versus the mainstream, what we call the mainstream industry, because it's creativity, but it's also subject to spiritual laws and all that. So when you release music, it's not for yourself. You are releasing it to bless the body of Christ as we know it.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't. Yes, everybody knows you wrote it, but it's gone out from your hands. You were a tool to get it.
Yeah.
People will get blessed
and
by
everyone should have that understanding. Everyone who's in that space should have that understanding.
So when someone takes your song, it's probably because it has ministered to them also. They've probably been blessed about it, or it speaks to a particular matter that, when they get on stage, they believe that when I sing the song or when I minister the song, it speaks to this, So for me, it boils down to the person who is singing your song. What's the motive behind it for him? Is he doing it just to get the fame and all that?
Or because he can do better riffs and runs.
Exactly. Or is it just a genuine connection to the song? That's what I think. Where I begin to also now draw the lines, if someone takes your song and goes to record it for himself without proper,
Permission, I guess.
Oh, that happens a lot.
So I know you did work
In
with
this
Nathaniel
sort of-
Bassey on Olorun Agbaye, and he categorically made sure that he talked about who owned the song.
Yeah.
Mama Bola Are.
Exactly.
And,
In
that,
fact,
that
at
was,
first, I didn't even know who wrote the song.
Yeah.
We actually had to do a bit of research after a while before a few people now said, "Oh,
she was the original
exactly."
writer.
And immediately he literally just gave credit to her. In fact, I think they had a conversation about
Yeah.
he and her, So yeah, that one. I have had people who come to me and say, "Okay, please, I want to do a remake of this song." And the first question I ask them is,
Does Diona know?
I have literally stopped work on a particular song before. I was like, we are not going to finish this song. Because he said, oh, yeah, the person said I should go ahead. But I'm like, is it written down? I know we are Christians and all, but when push comes to shove, will that person say exactly that? So at the end of the day, when he even released the song and all that, I think they ran into issues somewhere along the line because there were no written things. So I feel that some things should not be glossed over in the name of...
We are gospel people. Yeah, gotcha.
So I feel like it's all about the motive. Why is the person covering another person's song? Why?
I see that a lot from our Western brothers and sisters. And they'll do like full picture and everything, do a nice photo shoot,
but I can
and
tell
it's their
you,
version of the song.
But I can tell you that it's all that is going into a system where the original guy still gets his credits and gets his own part, and everything still comes to him. He doesn't be once, first of all, permission has been gotten before that starts. Because I mean, as you said, our Western brothers, they will not hesitate to carry you to court.
Joke.
They will not hesitate to carry you to...
Let's now talk about one of the most debated topics, still in the gospel music industry. There are concerns about how one of the reasons why, maybe before now, right, we see that the gospel musicians are doing so much. And I can say categorically that producers like yourself have contributed to that. People have complained about how gospel songs sound. They say, hey, the production is a pangolo, is something. The backup is very blah blah blah. It's very this and very that. How much impact does good production make on like gospel music, and how different do you think things are now? Are gospel artists a lot more concerned about like the instrumentation, the production than they used to be?
I will say yes, but it's much more complex than that.
Oh.
So, first of all, good music costs money.
What is good music? Break it down.
It's properly done. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
In the simplest terms, it's properly done, well recorded, no shortcuts. The best hands probably were used to mix and master. The best hands played, and all that. Yes. So, for me, it boils down to that fact that good music costs money.
Right.
The problem is when people start taking shortcuts. What is it? Why do you need live drums when you know that software, that drum software? See, we've all been there, right? And there are some of my old. It happens to everybody. I mean, you grow over time. Sometimes when me and some of my friends, maybe someone like Cobams or Lighton or any of those guys, we sometimes we listen to some of the stuff we've done back
in the day. Was that me?
But then we also listen to something you did and you're like, oh my goodness, we did that, So, but it's meant to happen. You're supposed to get better over time. And, so when I started having, in quote, international friends, collaborate on a lot of my productions, I bring them in, musicians and all that. It's sort of, I'd always had this at the back of my mind that, see, I live in Lagos, Nigeria, but I'm a citizen of the world, sort of. I'd always had that at the back of my mind, even when I didn't know how to go about that. I just always had that my production needs to meet a certain standard. So over time, I think that is what, when God puts something in your heart, at some point, it starts happening. One way or the other. You start gravitating towards some processes and some people and all that. Before you start making new friends and all that. So based on that, those affiliations started affecting not just me, but even some of the musicians I had around me.
Right.
Because the things I had in my head that I didn't know how to get to before, I now knew that I know how to get to it. It's just going to cost more. So let me bring this kind of guitarist on this song because I don't want to use this kind of guitarist. I'm a producer, so I know what I want to hear. I heard
so that raises the bar automatically.
Exactly. So I can't tell you, for example, Nathaniel Bassey that you mentioned. Now, I can't tell you the number of international musicians we used on this last album. I can't. So for me, it's who can get it done. I go to the person. If the person is in Australia, I reach out to the person.
Right.
that's the way it is. If the person is next door to me, it's the person I will call.
Cool.
So it doesn't have to be a local musician or an international musician. For me, those lines are blurred now. Who can do it is what I'm going for.
What would you say is the best way to measure a hit song? What makes a hit song a hit song?
I think for me, a hit song is a song that does what it's supposed to do. I think that what we define as hits are, the numbers, the strings, and all that. Yes.
Right.
But guess what? Those songs are doing what they're supposed to do. That's why they're earning those numbers.
So what are they supposed to do? Break it down.
If a song is supposed to get you to dance, and not just dance for 2 weeks and you forget it. Well, if 5 months from now you still get up and dance to that song, it's a hit song. And 5 months from now, people are still going to be streaming that song. That it is what it is, So if a song is, for me, if a song is supposed to put you in a relaxing mode for you to be able to sleep, and you also do your back end well, you push it into the places where you're supposed to, and people actually see the song, it will be on people's playlist.
You don't think that stuff like having radio stations put a song on rotation, paying your street DJ, and all those people that do mix inside one CD. Do you think those things, don't you think they contribute to some of these things, even if maybe the songs are not that fantastic? Maybe they're not the most danceable.
That's why I said, back end. If you remember that I mentioned back end, so good music doesn't sell itself.
You think?
No.
I always thought good music sold itself.
Nope. You still have to make noise about it. There's so many. See, I have heard songs that I'm like, sometimes, maybe I'm jogging with my wife or I'm driving. Sometimes I just like to just throw it in the open. I just go to iTunes or my Apple Music and just, just start playing songs.
Select for me.
Just random. And then I hear someone and I'm like, who is this person? A bit of work could be done in terms of the production side, but I hear a lot of potential. I'm like, but even at this, if this person could have, marketed this song the way, probably should have, been able to travel a bit more than that. So more often than not, it doesn't always work like that, but more often than not, I feel that those are the things that contribute to, a hit song. So good music, first of all, and then sell it. Sell it properly. I feel that somewhere in the middle of that, the momentum drops. That's why people, the songs.
But this may owe to the fact that maybe, like you mentioned before, there aren't structures, because one of the things that affects artists, maybe some of the most talented who are doing stuff but are not able to market their music, is because they don't have a record deal. Record label typically would, help with funds for doing all of these things.
Exactly.
So why don't we have proper record label structures in Nigeria?
I'm not sure if I'm the one who's going to answer that.
Because you're a producer now, and then of course you work in that space, you see what's going on.
So
why don't we have that?
I ran a record label for a few years.
Right.
Yeah, I did. So I have come to discover that record label music in Nigeria, business, not even in Nigeria, in the world, it's a long-term investment. It's like pouring.
He's
money.
not MMM. I'm
exactly.
sorry.
It's not MMM. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's not. It's at first you feel like you are pouring money into a well. A well with no base. It feels like that. So I feel like people come into, especially those who are not really very experienced about it. I was a victim of it too. You come into it and you think that once we release our first song like this, people just, and then they start calling your artist and then it starts blow. No, it doesn't always work
like that.
The market is already saturated. First of all, there's so many, in quote, mouths to feed. There's so many people betting for attention.
Yeah.
The reason why you have come into the music business is for you to be able to make profit. But sometimes I say, see, if you're doing a record label business, the first 2 years, don't expect anything in return. You're probably still just pumping money in, promoting your artist, creating brands and all that. And all that is not cheap. Somewhere in the middle of that, people get discouraged. What have you been spending on so much? I mean, we have done 5 videos. We have done, yes, they know you, but money is not coming in, and they forget that you are still, it's like climbing the side of a hill. You don't stop midway. When you get to the other side, then, descending on the other side is easier.
True.
But the climb is what people don't take into consideration when they start. So somewhere in the middle of it, because for every song you have to make noise about it. First of all, the production, you will spend money.
Yeah.
When in fact, everything you house the artist if you need to, buy car, buy fuel.
Make noise about the signing first off.
All that, So, and well, I mean, there's some other people who come into it for border unscrupulous elements. I mean, let's not talk about that.
But there are also debates around, like, people, like you said, people don't necessarily know the business of it. Some may not even understand the personality of their artist.
And then it's also a bit more tasking in a climate that has
Nigeria.
No structure.
Yeah.
It's a bit more tasking.
Yeah.
So you have to go from person to person. You're not coming into a system. You're not coming into a driveway of some sort. You're going from person to person. And if this person doesn't like you, then it's not even about your music anymore. Do they like you? Or are you willing to do what they want you to do?
Right.
Things like that. So that's why I said, until you have systems that are bigger than people, these things will come.
But let's even look at the market as well, right? Away from the operators, look at the consumers, right? The Nigerian audience. Since we're in Nigeria, looking at the Nigerian audience, it feels like sometimes they don't necessarily understand how these things work as well, right?
Yeah,
there are talks about. So I was talking to you about an artist who is not necessarily known physically, and how people say things like, "Oh, that's why they cannot invite us for an event because maybe sabi ginger crowd and all of those things." For some artists, they may not want to climb on a stage, to carry microphone and be shouting, put your hands in the air. So, taking a cue from that, how can the consumers better the lot of musicians who may not necessarily be the ones who want to climb on the stage? So stuff like maybe events, for instance, stuff like movies and how you use music to score and how they can make money from all of these things. Understanding, these things can also help the artists.
Okay, so I think that there needs to be some form of re-education of the listener's mind.
Who is going to do it?
It's not one person. It's going to be a collective effort over time. And I'm going to explain. The music spectrum, even from the listener side, is like a playing field. It's large, right? All we have hammered over time is just one section. That dance section. That beat. As someone would call it, heartbeat. Just keep my heartbeat going. Beat.
I thought Afro, is it Afro piano? I'm a piano. I thought it was somebody's name.
Really?
I thought it was a South African musician's name. And they said it's a kind of beat or something like that.
It's
like
an
a genre.
Yes, it's a genre. I would call it an
I
offshoot
thought it was an artist's name.
Afro pop or popular songs and popular sounds. Yeah.
Okay, back to what you were saying.
Music has different uses. There's that get you up and dance. There's make you listen. There's make you sleep. There's make you relax. And there are songs in every spectrum. But the ones that have received the most accolade over time are those heartbeat ones. So everybody feels a song comes out and they begin to judge that song based on just that side of the field, forgetting the rest. So there are people who there are shows you should go to and you shouldn't expect to sweat and get drunk and all that. You're just sitting and all that. But how many of those people know of those kind of shows, first of all? How many of them are willing to part with their money for tickets to go to things like that? It's a cultural thing. It's things we have trained ourselves over time, right? Also, the culture of someone releases a song and you're waiting for free download link. It's things we have taught ourselves over time.
True, there's that.
So we need to unlearn that. It's going to see the same way it took a while. It took literally hammering these kind of songs into people's heads until people realize, oh, that is our sound. It literally, we need to also now start hammering.
Same energy.
For other things. For other things. You should be able to sit down somewhere and it's an art and music show. Someone is painting and someone is giving you relaxing sounds and all that. So for me, it's the re-education of the mind.
I'm curious about how soon that will be. Really. So I know you've also worked in advertising, right? You have worked in advertising, and because I belong to many circles, and so I hear stuff. People also say something like, "Oh, there is a way Nigerian adverts are. Nigerian adverts, you must shout. Nigerian adverts, you must do a song for the brand, because if the song catches on, then the advert is a hit." Are these things true? Or is there a Nigerian way of doing an advert?
To a large extent, yes.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we've seen a few times where people have defied the norm and it's sort of paid off. Sometimes, sometimes some brands are they're a bit skeptical to step into that, in quote, unknown, in quote. So you see a lot of creatives being frustrated because of that. So they see, their colleagues shooting ads in South Africa, shooting ads in the US, and they'll be like, but I can think about these things.
Oh, now. I did think about it. Client said.
Exactly. So you also have to also understand that you're in the business of selling the brand, your client's brand.
Yeah.
So how do you combine both while being creative, also, sell the client's brand? So that's usually where the iron clashes and you have those sparks.
Yeah.
That honestly, that's it. So if you find someone spearhead something and that thing becomes an instant hit, everybody goes there.
True.
Everybody wants to stay there until you have someone else do something that defies the norm. Maybe someone thinks, okay, you know what? Maybe we have the mind, the gumption, to risk it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But then they do it and it works. Before you know it, everybody's potting to that. It's the same way.
Generally speaking, how important is music to communication? Whatever kind of communication.
If I told you something right now, and I said that same thing in a song with a beat or an accompaniment you like, most likely by tomorrow you will forget what I said, but you will remember that I sang it in a song. Does that answer the question?
It does. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I'm also curious about, and we're kind of wrapping up now, reality shows, particularly the ones that are catered to music. There are complaints about how a lot of times, and over time, maybe even in the African example, people who win these reality shows don't necessarily go ahead to be great musicians. They don't go ahead to be the ones to become famous through music. Their examples are all over the place. First of all, why do you think that is? Is it true, in your opinion?
Oh, it is. I mean, you will see that 90% of people who win shows just go into oblivion after that.
So the ones who are like third runner up or did not even make the top 10 are the ones who now become really famous. So is it that there's something wrong with how we do reality shows in Nigeria?
Not necessarily. I think people need to understand that the end of the a reality show is literally just you literally just give birth to a baby. How the baby is going to grow after that is still up to you or up to the baby himself or herself. I think people just think that, once I emerge, people will like me. No, if you don't, there's so much information coming at the consumer. If you don't keep being active, you will be relegated to the back. It's what it is.
The attention span is even, of course, very short as well. So
attention span is getting shorter.
You have been a judge on a reality show before. What would you say about the quality of judges on reality shows that are franchised in Nigeria as well, when you compare them to their Western counterparts?
Okay, so I think that there are a lot of things at stake.
Okay.
More than what you see in front of when you sit in front of your TV. The owner of the show did not come just to make you feel good.
Right.
They're also thinking about their numbers. So they probably have to, think about who is going to sell this show the most, not who is the most intricate, professional, and all that. And that gives rise to other questions, but that's why they call it showbiz. It is the business of showmanship. Sometimes they elevate the business over the showmanship. Sometimes some other people elevate the showmanship over the business. There needs to be a balance. If it's not balanced, you will see it over time. So at the end of the day, you now see popular musicians being judges, and you're like, come on, please, just keep singing. Don't try and come and judge. Because, but then you have other people who are probably seasoned producers, but they're not popular.
Exactly.
So they won't sell the show. So how do you combine that?
It will affect the quality of talent that comes out of the show eventually.
Exactly. So until there is a perfect balance between the two, you'll probably just keep, rolling out half-baked, in quote.
Who's the worst artist you've worked with?
Wow. Yeesh.
Least favorite. Let's not say worst.
Okay, so I'm very careful who I work with. So before I even start to work with you at all, we need to have we need to have crossed some hurdles, actually. So I don't think anybody that I have worked with, I don't think there will be a least favorite there. I will say, people I have come in contact with.
Right.
Yeah. So there was this lady who came, she even came with someone who looked like a manager or something, blah, blah, blah. And usually, personally, before I even take physical meetings, there has to be some form of, seriousness. I need to have been sure that you're not just coming to the studio to come and vibe. Yeah, let's just sit down, let's see.
Let's vibe. We'll just do freestyle.
Anybody got time for that? So, but then she comes in and, okay, sit down, we're talking. I ask questions. Where do you see yourself? What are you trying to do with your music? I don't just, get in front of the system. Yeah, let's start recording. Okay, so we talk about all that. She gives me everything and then, okay, sing. And then she starts to sing off key.
Wow. Woo.
Yeah. And the manager is just there like,
this one now hit.
we are killing this guy right now. We're killing this poor guy.
Baba, you feel
So, and I tell her to stop. And then I tell her to sing again. So at some point, I now stopped her. I said, you know what? I will be very open with you. I think that you should get a voice coach. I see that you're very passionate about it. I think you should get a voice coach.
That she was singing flat.
I didn't want to bust.
But is that easy for you? Can you tell a friend of yours that they're singing off key or that they're not great at singing?
People tell me that I can be very blunt. I don't know, but
that works in your favor.
They say because they say I'm this nice guy until we get to the music.
Right.
So it's just like I just take this mask off and like we have come here now. Yeah. So I try to be as diplomatic as possible, but sometimes diplomacy doesn't sell.
Who's the best artist you've ever worked with? Your funnest. It's like you can work with this person every day of the week, twice on Sunday.
I won't say there's that one.
Okay, give me like a top 3 then. Top 3.
Wow. Okay, I will say Nathaniel Bassey is one because apart from the fact that he's a producer by himself, so I end up assisting him. Actually, I actually just end up assisting him. He's very vast, and then apart from that, we vibe a lot when we're in the studio. We talk about a lot of stuff. So beyond just studio, we're really good friends. So based on that, recording days are literally just we're just there, and before you know it, when it's time to do the work, we do the work. When it's time to just sit down and maybe encourage each other or just talk, we do that a lot, and it's just a great guy.
So I'm sure you don't do like sessions with us, like, okay, we've got a 3-hour session.
No.
It's like a whole day.
I mean, generally, I don't even do that because I've come to understand over time that you can't time creativity. You can't just say, oh yeah, come and get creative between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m.
I need that on a t-shirt. You can't time creativity. I love it.
The quotable quote. Let's go. So, yeah.
Okay, so Nathaniel Bassey.
You're going to put me in trouble with this. I'm trying to, in my head. Okay, I have this American artist that I work with. Her name is Michelle.
Michelle Benedict.
Oh, you know her?
I do.
Okay, so there's Michelle. Michelle is just, she's just a bundle of, she's just sweet in and out. So.
Who's your third?
If I say it, you will find it, you may not find it funny. But okay, well, these are people I have worked with in recent times. Flavor.
Really? Flavor, I love high life music.
Flavor.
Yeah,
beyond that, Flavor is a deep musician. Flavor knows what he wants, right? So Flavor comes to me and gives me this song, and he says, "Go to town with it," right? He's not even looking for his familiar high life sounds. He says, I want to hear something else, So I've put an orchestra on the song for Flavor. This is his last album that we did last year. There's an orchestra on one of his songs. There were choirs on 2 of his songs.
Wow.
So he's just fun to work with. He's that kind of guy who knows what he wants, but then he lets you take him there. Yeah. So
that's
okay,
great.
I've mentioned 3 people.
Yes, you have. Who do you hope to work with?
I never really sit down to do that. I feel that over time, as everybody is just doing their own, you will jam the person you're supposed to.
Yeah, I guess.
So usually, so I directed music for, do you know Lady Smith Black Mambazo?
Yes.
South African Grammy Award winning. Do you know Salif Keita?
Yes.
Okay, so I directed a show. I directed music in a show in South Africa.
That was a few years ago.
Yes,
I think I saw it on your Instagram.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember.
So it was literally a call, and it was based on, I was directing Yemi Alade at that time too.
Oh, I see.
So we got there, and it was so easy to work with them. They were like, you know what, we want your music director to direct us. So it was so easy. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't go looking for it. So it was so easy for them to just say, you know what, let's get director music.
Brilliant.
So that I feel that, over time, as you just keep doing one way or the other, things will happen, and those guys will you just get into the same space with those guys. Or whoever wants to,
Is there any song you've heard, perhaps on radio or anywhere else, that you thought, oh, geez, I feel rework this song?
Let's not start to.
Give me one. Just one. Just one that I thought, geez, what kind of dead production is this?
Let me not say name. Let me not say anyone. But I know
now
that
just one.
There was a day I woke up at 5:30 in the morning. You're just still, and then I
groggy.
start my car. And someone is screaming, "Give it to me!" It's not "Give it to me." No, it's not a Prince's song. It was another person who was literally screaming, "Give it to me!" And I'm like, dude, at 5:30 in the morning, I'm like, who?
Maybe it was the time of day, no?
No, beyond that.
It just was
so much noise. So much. I'm like, dude, calm down. Let's not go there. There's so many
of them.
Some I know, some I don't know. But I mean, I try to not make it my duty to say, oh God, because I mean, come on, it's not me that is your God.
What's your favorite genre to work on?
Honestly, I do not have a favorite.
Really?
Maybe because of the way I grew up listening to a lot of different types of songs. From my father's records to stuff that we picked up. See, from local music, Fuji, Akbala, High Life, to gospel, then to jazz, Yellow Jackets, all that. Then we started listening to CCM. So I would say my palette is very... So sometimes I wake up in the morning, all I want to listen to is classical.
Right.
And sometimes I'm driving or Gwenny, I'm looking for that Fuji song. So it just depends on where I'm at.
Great. Man, I've had quite an interesting chat. I've really, really enjoyed this. And I'm sure that you have too, whether you're listening and if you're watching. Rotimi also has. So that's really awesome. Do you have any parting shots? Anything you want to tell anybody, maybe who's a producer, who's a musician, maybe even particularly upcoming acts who feel like, they aren't being heard. Maybe they're producing their music themselves. They don't have enough money to pay fantastic producer like you. They don't have record label. They say nobody's supporting. They're not getting the streams. Yeah.
I will say that there's something about time. You can't, first of all, you can't cheat time. You can't cheat time. So I will say, understand that success comes with time. That is consistency over time. Keep going. Keep going. Some days you wake up feeling on top of the world. Some days you wake up feeling the world is on top of you.
Yeah.
But keep going. There are some things, there's no shortcut. There are some things that will have to go through the test of time. It has to. There is no shortcut to it. That is the truth. If you want to see what this room looks like at night, you have to literally go through the process of staying here all
until
night. It's the same way.
That's brilliant.
There's no overnight. Someone said, if you call me an overnight success, then that must have been the longest night ever. So try not to take any shortcuts. Just keep going and make sure you're on the right road, but keep towing that right road until you get to where you're going. Everybody has their destination.
Wow. Famous wise words of
Right.
Rotimi Keys. Real name Rotimi Akifenwa. I've had a really great time talking to you on the podcast today, and
Thank
I
you for
appreciate
having
you
me
for your time. This is definitely going to be one for the books.
Oh, wow.
I'm
Okay.
too sure. Oh my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
What are your social media handles for anyone who wants to follow?
Rotimi Keys everywhere. It's, I think, yes. Rotimi Keys.
Keys with a Z.
No. Yeah.
An S.
Yes.
You don't do keys. Why not?
I don't. Someone has say Rotimi KISS before. Rotimi Keys. I said, from where to where now? So it is actually the plural of key.
It sounds like
KEYS.
So follow him on Twitter and on Instagram as well. And do make sure that you check out his own music on his YouTube channel, right? That's also Rotimi Keys on YouTube. Check it out and hear for yourself the talent that this man is just blessed with. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much. Remember to please like this podcast wherever you're listening from. If it's on Apple Podcasts, please make sure that you favorite it. If it's on Anchor, do the exact same thing. If you're watching on YouTube. Hello. Please make sure you guys subscribe to our channel and share this video to everyone in your circle. Like I said, this is one for the books. Belarus from TechCity signing out. I'll see you guys on the next one.